Welcome back to Coffee and Tea with CarrieVee. I'm CarrieVee, your biggest fan. And on this podcast, we talk all things leadership, communication, confidence, clarity, and life. And on today's podcast, we have with us Coach Dan Gordon. I have been looking forward to this recording. I have been perusing Dan's website, and this is an incredible human being. And I know you're going to enjoy today's episode. Dan, welcome to the show, and tell us what is lighting you on fire right now.
Oh, well, this conversation, I mean, the way that you introduced me really touched me. And, this is endemic of what entrepreneurs need to do that they're not doing, which is making the person that they're talking to much more important than themselves. I mean, from the moment you started, Carrie, I felt really important. I felt really welcome. And, I focus on sales because wherever you're struggling in business and life, sales is going to show you that struggle, right? And so that's what I love about it. And my brand of sales training is a very authentic style, which I call no douchebag selling, because it is, right? Yes. And so one of the tenets of no douchebag selling is make the other person more important than you. Stop thinking about what you're trying to sell them and engage in what they need. Maybe they don't need your product or service. Your job is to leave that meeting, that sales meeting, with them in a better position than when you walked in. I completely hijacked your show, Carrie. Please take control.
No, I want you to hijack the show.
Okay.
And I was so hoping that you would bring up the no douchebag sales, because when I saw that, I was like, I want the book.
I'm shot out of a cannon, Carrie. What can I say?
I absolutely love it. Yes, everything you just said, I wanted to jump up out of my seat and go, hallelujah, yes. This is 100% it. So tell us how did you begin to dive into this? Was it seeing sleazy sales and going, oh, this is icky, let's transform this, but let's hear the backstory.
So I can tell you, a lot of people say, oh, Coach Dan, you're so lucky. You're a natural born salesperson. And I'm like, ha, right? I used to hyperventilate before and after sales meetings, sometimes during sales meetings. I would literally have to excuse myself and go into the bathroom and throw up. Right? I was so scared. And a lot of people are. And why? Why are we so afraid of selling? We're afraid because it's intimate. And as human beings, we fear intimacy. Yeah. We want it, and yet we are afraid of it. Didn't know we'd be talking about this, did you, Carrie? Right? And so this is true. Like, look, when we come out of the womb into the world, we are these little golden beans of love, right? And then what happens? Right? We get our heart broken. We don't get what we want. We start to recognize that the world is not in service to us. Right. And so most of us, rather than go, oh, okay, I can deal with that, we start to limit the number of things that we ask for, right? Because we don't want the pain of being told no. Yes. Right? Like when we're walking down the cereal aisle with mom or dad, and we reach for the Lucky Charms, and they're like, no, we can't afford that, right? Yeah. And we're like, oh, I did something wrong, right? Yeah. Our little hearts get broken. Right. So next time we walk down the cereal aisle and they say, okay, you pick the cereal that you want, we're not going to pick the Lucky Charms, not because we don't want it, but because we don't want the heartbreak. Okay. Yes. So fast forward, right, to adulthood. We have taken our wants and needs and started to dial them down and dial them down and dial them down. And why? So we don't feel the heartbreak. We don't even know it. We don't even know that we're dialing down what we want and that we're accepting less and less in life. Right. Mm-hmm. So jump forward now. Here we are. We're in this sales meeting. We're entrepreneurs. We're trying to connect with people. And yet we're so afraid of that same heartbreak, right? That trauma. And so a lot of what I do, what I begin with, is I start talking to people. What's going on inside of you? Yes. Right? And I don't necessarily ask that question, but I get to it. Yes. All right. And so the basis of my sales is coming all the way back around, Carrie. The basis of my sales is really first understanding your own resistance to who you are and being intimate and open with your clients, right? Everybody wants this kind of this bullshit approach to selling. Well, what do I say? Okay, I'll focus on their pain points, right? And talk about my the product features and benefits, right?
Yeah.
This old awful Sandler method of selling that like was developed in the 70s and just doesn't belong in modern society.
Yeah.
If you think of sales like you think of a relationship, like you're going on a first date, you don't sit down and start covering your features and benefits. Well, this is how much I make, this is where I live, this is what kind of, like, you
Yeah.
get to know the person,
Exactly.
you get to understand them, right? You don't go right in for the sale. Hey, let's go back to my place, right? I mean, that's going to get you a slap across the face. And
Exactly.
ultimately, and ultimately, frankly, if they do want to go back to your place, it's probably not the person that you want to end up with. Same is true in selling, right? You want to get to know the person. You want to get to understand them. You want less about you and your needs and what you're offering and more about them and understanding them. And they might not be the right client for you. I mean,
Right.
I just talk with someone. I have a lot of conversations with people before I onboard them as a client, and I got, you know 99 yards down the field, and at the last minute, I realized this is not going to work, and I jettisoned the client. Right? I referred him to someone else.
Yeah.
Right? And so I am super open and intimate about what my experience or what the experience is going to be like in working with me. And I'm going to make really sure that my style and what I do fits with what the person is all about.
Yes. Yes. How did you learn, or let me rephrase this. Have you ever gotten into a situation where you worked with someone and as you were getting into this coaching relationship, you realized this is not working?
Oh yeah. I
And
mean, the reason I'm so uh, uh, I'm so intricate about onboarding people is because those awful things happen.
yeah.
And I've had to have those hard conversations. Hey, this is not working.
Hmm.
And now look, I have a lot of tools and a lot of abilities and a lot of creativity, so I will try every which way. But ultimately, if the client is not making money, and that's the key. And I'll say that right now, if you're thinking about hiring a coach, the first thing you have to ask that coach is, how are you going to make sure I get paid back for what I'm paying you? And if the
Yes.
coach does not have an answer to that question, or their answer is something like, well, what you put into it is what you get out of it,
Uh-huh.
run, because that coach is going to set you up for failure. When you fail, they're going to blame you and say, well, you didn't do the work.
Mm.
Right. So I never say that to a client. If they're not getting results, it means that I'm not coaching them properly, and I have to change my method and my style, and I do. Right. And I've had to do that. There is everybody's different, and so the way that I approach them is different, and the way that they accept coaching is different. Some people need a softer touch. Some people want to, go, set the controls on automatic and go to the center of the sun,
Yeah. Yeah.
and some people say that they want that. And when I start doing that, then they're like, whoa, too much. I dial it back. Right.
Yes.
But ultimately, to answer your question, yeah, I've had a few clients in the past who I've just had to have that moment with and say, look,
Yeah.
I'm not your person. What you're looking for is something very different than what I can offer you. And basically what that was is they wanted a little hand holding. They wanted someone to tell them that they're doing a great job. They didn't want to really move forward, which I understand. It's scary, especially the way I do it. And they just want to be in this holding pattern. And after 6-8 months of working with them and trying various ways, it just ultimately I had to say I am ineffective here.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the three people I'm thinking of who I had that conversation with said, no, I'll keep paying you. And I said, no, I'm not going to accept your money. I can't take your money and not give you results. That's antithetical to my value system.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an it's an interesting conversation to have with clients. And
Yeah,
I've heard people term it firing clients, but I don't like to think of it that way.
no,
I just like to look at it as setting them free to go to what it is that really it is that they need and that they
yeah,
desire. And you can't the truth is we can't be all things to all people. We are here
Well,
to.
not with that attitude, Carrie. No, you're 100% right. 100% right. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not the perfect coach for everybody. You're not the perfect coach for everybody. Oprah's not the perfect coach for everybody. We all have these different ways of coaching, and we have a different style of client that we like to work with, and that's why there's so many of us. And the good coaches understand that. I believe that.
And there's so few. I got to be honest. I hate most coaches, Carrie. And the reason, look, if you could become a brain surgeon tomorrow, if you could wake up in the morning and go, I think I'm going to be a brain surgeon. That's the job for me. And there's no AMA, there's nothing stopping you. You just print business cards. We would hate brain surgeons, right? We'd hate doctors because they would just be people who kill you.
Yes.
And, we'd be at a dinner party. What do you do? Oh, I'm a doctor. Stay away from me, right? There's no bar for entry to be a coach. And, as far as I know, all you need is a mouth. And so because of that, there's some really terrible coaches. And I should know, I've hired a bunch of them. And, in my early days, I got some terrible coaching. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on awful coaches.
Yes.
And that's why I say, a really great question to ask a business coach, not a life coach but a business coach. How are you going to make sure I get paid back?
Yes.
Because if they don't have that answer, that's not on their mind.
Oh, that is such a great question. Let's just repeat that one more time. What is the question that we ask business coaches? Because I have seen too many people get in really bad coaching relationships. So let's just really cement that.
Hey, I'm going to go you one better. I have a book that I wrote, a little ebook. It's called How to Find the Perfect Coach for you, even if it's not Coach Dan. And to get that ebook, just text the word coach, COACH, to this number, 213-409-8366. 213-409-8366, and text the word coach. And there's 10 things that you want to ask a coach before you hire them. And so the thing I just mentioned is, how are you going to make sure I get paid back for what I'm paying you? And like I said, if they say what you put into it is what you get out of it, that's not an answer.
No, it is not. No, it is not.
I mean, look,
go ahead.
I make, I have a financial advisor and I make a lot of investments. And, Kevin, when he says, hey, you should invest in this. And I say, great, show me the prospectus. He never says, well, Dan, what you get out of this investment is what you put into it. Like, well, no, that's not the answer. Like, show me right? How are you going to make sure that I get paid back on this? And that's, and a lot of coaches will say, well, that's an investment in you. Well, then you better damn well have some evidence that you can get the person paid back. I have 80 people on my website. I have 80 testimonials from people. And that's not even all of my testimonials. Like that, if your coach should have a lot of testimonials, not just 2 or 3. They can get their friends to record testimonials. They should have a lot of them. Like you need to do some deep dives, talk to their former clients. Don't listen. Don't just accept what I'm saying. If you want to hire me as your coach, don't just do it because I'm really good. I'm good at sales. I could be lying to you. Talk to people who have coached with me. Watch these videos.
Yes, this is so powerful. And what a great message. And yes, you are right. People can say I'm a coach because they printed a business card and said they were. And I think post-COVID, we saw a lot of that. And we saw,
I know, right? Yeah.
A lot of the space getting very flooded. And I joined a couple of masterminds myself that just
went nowhere, right?
They didn't even go nowhere. They went backwards.
It's such a bad feeling, Carrie.
It is a horrible
feeling. Yeah.
It is a horrible feeling. And if it's something that I'm sure you feel the same way, I'll use the word we. If it's something we can stop people from jumping into, I feel like we have done good in the world.
Right.
There's a lot out there. And another question that I will ask anyone I coach with now is, who are you currently working with? Because I don't want to work with someone who is not actively trying to grow themselves, whether it's under their coach, or what are you tapping into? Are you tapping into what trainings are you tapping into? What are you doing to keep yourself growing? That's an
Yeah.
important one.
So important.
Yeah. So let's jump a bit to your speaking, because I loved the speaking tab on your website too. And you were saying, I don't have this canned signature story. I can talk about all these things. I would love to hear your concept on this, because as a speaker, this is what I'm taught all the time. You got to have that one signature talk, or those two signature talks. And I get like almost rebellious with that. It's like, but there's so much. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you open with you gotta with me about anything, I'm going to give you some pushback.
Yep.
Because I have been the exception to the rule all of my life, and like all things being equal, Carrie, I should be living under a bridge with a needle in my arm right now. I mean, things it was not easy, right? And so I don't follow the standard anything, because the standard anything is not where the action is.
Yes.
Dr. Martin Luther King didn't go, well, what's the thing everybody else is doing? It's like, wait a second. And so to answer your question though, what I like to do is really to understand who my audience is.
Yes.
And then create the program around that. Look, because I've spoken 100 gazillion times, right? Yeah. There's so much I can bring in. And I'll take it back to dating, is that, like, what's your signature line when you sit down with someone new to go on a date with them? Well, if you have a signature line or signature talking point, like you're not authentic.
Exactly.
I was doing a presentation not that long ago, and I really drilled the company about who's going to be in the room. And so they told me who's going to be in the room, and I got there, and it was an event, and I was there a day before the event, and I'm talking with all these people, and I'm like, oh, this is not the people that they said. And I have a presentation that I've worked for a month that I'm going to give tomorrow that is wrong for the people in the room. Wow. So what I did is, the first part of the presentation was fine. It was kind of that deep dive getting into it. And then I said, look, the rest of this is not for you. I made a mistake. I didn't blame the company. But I just said, I got to know some of you, and I realized this is not, and I did like who here, this and that. And so we moved all the tables out. We just pushed the tables to the side, and we got in a big circle. And I said, let's just talk about where you are and what you need and what's next. And we had this really cool conversation. And there were about 100 people in the room. I mean, it was a nice big room. Like the event, the people who put on the event, like, what did you do? Like, why were all the tables moved? And like, I was like, because, not to be, too inflammatory, but you gave me some bad advice, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, as a speaker, you have to be able to pivot. They have to recognize that if what you're doing isn't working, stop.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Carrie, but I've been at speaking events. I've been at a lot of speaking events. Yeah. And the thing I hate is hearing the speakers say things like, hey, are you listening out there? Or, gee, you're not a very enthusiastic audience.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Have you heard that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Insulting. It's insulting.
It is insulting. Well, what it's saying is they're not willing to reflect on the fact that they suck as a speaker. It's fine. You're supposed to suck at some point. You're not supposed to be good at things, right away. Or, maybe that. And I said, well, inspire us to be excited.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, the speaker didn't like that. Everybody else in the room did, but the speaker didn't. I got in trouble.
I can kind of sense this little, or actually a lot of troublemaker in you.
I am, I'm a disruptor. But that's where the action is. Again, you look at all of the luminaries in this world, and you who are listening right now should be thinking about what you want to bring to the world. And the second you know what that is, and you already know what that is, you may tell yourself that you don't, but you know what it is. The second that you acknowledge that as truth, recognize that there's going to be a tremendous amount of pushback.
Yeah.
because people want to stay in the Barca lounger watching, TV.
Yep.
And the second you tell them to get up, you're disrupting them. The
Yeah.
second you say things can be better, but they're going to be different, you are disrupting the ego structure of the human mind. Our minds are designed to keep doing exactly the same thing and to make no changes. So we'll say things like, well, I'm not ready yet, or let me think about it, or, I got to talk to someone. No, you don't,
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's the basis of my authentic selling, is that we are designed by God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, to a survival mechanism, which is based on not doing anything new.
Yeah.
And so when you're asking someone to do something new, there's going to be pushback, and you have to be kind and compassionate with them around that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Those words, kind and compassionate. I was speaking with a client yesterday about how it feels like kindness and compassion have really taken a back seat lately.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that? We've lost that, and it's so needed.
Well, look, people are getting more afraid.
Yeah.
We're in a culture where people are more fearful. We're getting more information that we're going to get less of what we want. And it's not true, but that's the information that we're getting. And I think that you look at what happened during COVID with toilet paper, right? It was such a big indicator. It had nothing to do with toilet paper. What it was is, I'm afraid that my life is going to change in a way where I'm not going to be able to live the way that I want to. And a basic tenet of living, which is cleaning our behinds when we're done defecating, the idea that we would not be able to do that effectively or easily terrified us. So it had
Yeah.
nothing to do with toilet paper. It had everything to do with, I don't want things to change.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And look, that's why, Christ was crucified. That's why Martin Luther King was thrown in jail and shot. That's why Gandhi was shot. Change, agents of change terrify people. And when you who are listening right now, become an agent of change, you're going to frighten people.
Yes.
And you will be branded a troublemaker. But it is the troublemakers, the rebels, right? The change makers who are canonized and appreciated throughout history.
Yes, that's gold right there.
Thank you.
Pure gold. It is so true. It is so true. You mentioned or alluded to that you've been kind of branded a troublemaker pretty much your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Yeah, I bet, right? And I don't mean to be like, I don't wake up in the morning and go, okay, let's break some rules today. I'm just living my life, and I'm doing the things that I know are effective.
Yes.
And occasionally what is effective bumps up against what is comfortable in other people, and they have a violent reaction to it.
Oh, I recently joined a networking group which shall remain
nameless. You'll tell me after the show, Carrie.
And I was asked to do a certain segment in the group. And so I took it and ran with it. And I was told, I was kind of pulled aside and I was reprimanded that I wasn't doing it the way it's always been done. And I really didn't know how to take the information, because the feedback I was getting was that everybody loved it. And so a few weeks into it, I was speaking with a group who were in the networking group. And one of the other women said to me, well, you did kind of come in like a wrecking ball. You just were like, well, what we've been doing hasn't been working, so let's just change it up. And so I went back to the leadership and I said, I didn't mean to make waves, but I just kind of authentically, naturally make waves, because if something is boring, it's not working.
Right.
And we need to change it up, or the whole organization dies. Why don't we ask everybody in the room if they want to go back to the way things were? Fine. But if they like the direction that we're heading, maybe we give it a chance. And
What was the reaction?
The reaction on the high leadership was, no, we've always done it this way, but I kept doing it my way anyway. I mean, it's a volunteer position. You could tell me not to do it anymore. It's fine, but I wasn't going to actually stop. And then as the feedback kept trickling in, a lot of people were saying, gosh, we're taking this information back to our teams. This is fabulous. Then I started to be more accepted, but I truly was not liked by the leadership.
Yeah, look, anytime, when people tell me, look, this is the way we've always done it, I say, you should talk to your local Blockbuster employee about that.
Oh, right? That's a great comeback.
Because that's what Blockbuster said, that Netflix tried to sell themselves to Blockbuster. Right? Or in the, when Blockbuster was a $5 billion company, Netflix wanted like $5 million pocket change, right? And all Blockbuster heard is, well, hold on, wait. If we get rid of this whole rental system, what about the late fees? Because that's where we make all of our money. Like, no way, right? So what happened, right? They didn't evolve.
Yes.
Do you know which company invented the digital camera? Kodak invented the digital camera, and they said, well, we're not going to so they gave in their little lab, like someone invented it, and they're like, we don't throw this thing away. Like, we sell film. If people buy this thing, that right. So what happened? Right? They didn't evolve. Wow. You have to be in a constant state of evolution and development. And so what this company, or what this organization said is, look, we're going to we want to die. Right. We want to make sure that what we're doing comes to an end.
Yeah.
Right, without realizing it. And by the way, when I've been called a wrecking ball before, and what I said was, yeah, but where are wrecking balls used? Where do people use a wrecking ball? They use a wrecking ball when it's time to take something down so they can build something greater.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing. Right. We're building something greater. Yeah. And the other advice I'd give to all of you troublemakers out there is going back to compassion, and I've had people say, hey, look, that's not the way that we do it. And I say, I get it. Like, I really understand. And I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing that with me. It's tough when someone offers something new, a new way of doing it. Right. It upsets the apple cart, doesn't it? Right. So I start where they are. And I speak in their mind, like, it's tough. And then I say, hey, can I ask you a question? And then the question is a little more pointed. Like, what's your growth strategy? Like, what's next for the organization? Well, we're just going to keep going, and like, all right, and then I talk about Blockbuster or Radio Shack or, Kodak. And then and then I just sort of ease people into the cult of Dan. And then, then they either run away or they get hooked.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, I'm imagining myself being in the audience at one of your workshops. I imagine they are full of life and fun.
Well, I like things to be super interactive. And I like it when people get up and they talk with each other and they connect. And, I mean, like, this is one of these things that, speaking 101, don't let the audience talk to each other because you'll never get the room back. I know how to get the room back. You ask them to make a promise. Like, hey, before we do this, and I blow my little whistle, we all make a promise to put their hands on it. Okay, when I blow the whistle, and then they sit down, it's just like, you gotta work with them. Now, can I share? I have this thing. It's my secret weapon, and I'd love to share this with you.
Yes, please.
Okay, so there's what I call the 3 silent killers of success, right? And that is, every entrepreneur struggles with this. It's stress, it's sleep, it's productivity, right? I don't know a single entrepreneur that gets enough sleep. Mm-hmm. I don't know a single entrepreneur that lives without stress. And I don't know a single entrepreneur that doesn't want more productivity. And I have tried everything under the sun to increase my productivity, sleep more, and nothing worked. And then I found this one really cool thing. And I was so surprised that I found it on my phone, right? The one thing that is the productivity killer. Yeah. And it's this technology called binaural beats. And it's essentially sound waves. And you listen to it And it puts your brain in these different states. And this one company called Newcalm is like the leader in this. They've been at this for like 30 years, Nucalm. And I started using Newcalm, and oh my God, I used it at night because I wasn't sleeping. It put me out like a light, right? And I wake up shot out of a cannon. They have different channels of Newcom. So I use it for productivity. I was on it before we got on this call because I wanted my mind to be open, and it does that. And on the other side, I listen to it at night and it puts me out, right? Puts me out, wakes me up in the morning, keeps me productive all day. So I called the company. I talked to the CEO, Jim Poole. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but you have like, this is lightning in a bottle. And I said, I want to talk to everybody about it. I want you to give me a free week of Newcom I can share with people. And he's like, yeah, okay. Like, who are you? But yeah, fine. And so to get this free week of Newcom, I encourage everybody to at least try it out. Just text the word calm, CALM, to this number. That same number, 213-409-8366. 213-409-8366, and text the word calm, CALM. You'll get more sleep. You'll get more productivity. You'll get less stress. And by the way, this isn't just me talking. Guess who else uses this? The Army, U.S. Special Forces, the FBI, 50 professional sports teams. And like, so it's not, people with a lot more stress than me, right, are using this. And I mean, even there are doctors using it instead of local anesthesia during surgery on their patients. Right. And literally, you put on the headphones, you put on the eye mask, and you are going bye-bye. It's a very powerful, very cool thing. So I'm telling everybody about it. It's my secret weapon. I use it every day. All my clients use it. I got my family using it. So I want everybody to use it. That's my thing.
Oh, I'm definitely going to try this. I love binaural beats. I have some on my Spotify. There's not a lot of them, but
everybody else's posers. You got to try Newcom. They put a lot of time into it. Yeah,
I will. I promise I'm going to be texting you today for that, because I do love them. And it does put me in the zone when I'm working on something. Yeah. It just keeps me so incredibly focused. So thank you for that.
Yeah. They have there's this really cool origin story. The doctor who created it, he has Asperger's, and he never felt connected and always stressed, and just started to create this thing. It was when he first created it, it was a $10,000 medical device that was approved by the FDA as a class 3 medical device, which is like a pacemaker and those things. So it's like, so it's the only thing that's patented. As like, I don't want to keep talking about this, but you people have to try it.
Yes.
Jump on.
Yes, do it. Everyone listening, get out there and do this. If you're watching, you're listening, text CALM to 213-409-8366. And there were some other things that we could send there. What was the first one?
Yeah. So coach, if you text coach to that same number. And one last thing, I wrote a book called Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action, because we all tell ourselves stories, Carrie, right? Yeah. We say, well, I can't do this because.
Right.
And, I'm not ready yet. I don't have enough money. I can't afford it. I got to think about it. These are all stories.
Yes.
All stories that we tell ourselves that are based on our ego structure that's designed to keep us safe. Right? I get it. Right. Who wants to be in danger? Well, that's where the action is. So when I went through a really tough time about 7 years ago, I lost my business. I lost $100,000. I literally was on this floor in snot and tears. Everything fell apart because I was not following my passion. I was following the money, and that's why it failed. I reset all of my switches. And after I came out of it, I wrote this book because I realized that it's not just the stories that I tell myself, it's the stories that we all tell ourselves. And so to get that book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action, just text the word GAP to guess which number. Same thing, 213-409-8366, and text the word GAP, GAP. You can read the book or you can download the audiobook. But when you text in that word GAP to 409-8366. You'll get a link to download either of them.
Wow.
So if you love reading, great. If you love listening, great. I got you covered. And it's free. Like, you're not going into some funnel. It's not free and then you buy something else. It's just that. All right.
Yes. Oh my gosh. These free gifts. This is fabulous and amazing. You have brought us so much gold today. I kept
Thank
thinking
you.
this is the highlight of the show, and then you would say something else. Oh no, this
But
is
wait,
the show.
there's more. It's like a Ginsu knife.
More. That's right. That's right. We got 5 Ginsus for the price of 1 today. So,
and right, if you're under 30, you have no idea what we're talking about. That's cool. Google search it. Do a search on YouTube. You'll go, what the hell is this?
There's no more Ginsu knives anymore.
No more Ginsu knives. No.
Oh, that's so sad. They went bye-bye with Kodak, I guess. They didn't keep up with what's the one, the Cutco that always comes to the door. Yeah. So how can we reach you other than this number? What is your website? Tell everybody how we can find you.
So if you just do a search for Coach Dan Gordon, you'll find all things Coach Dan Gordon. But if you want to talk with me, jump on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. We can chat. You just do a search for Coach Dan Gordon on LinkedIn. You can find my podcast for badass entrepreneurs only. And by the way, Carrie, I'm going to twist your arm. I want you to be on my podcast.
I would love to be on your podcast.
Awesome. I'm going to send you links so you can book that. And all the usual places, Facebook, Instagram, blah, 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 blah. LinkedIn is my favorite because tends to be people who are more serious there. They're not just looking at people doing dances, and not that that's not important in some way, but I'm a take action kind of guy. I don't know if you knew that about me, Carrie, but that's just the way things are.
I can sense that. And all of our listeners on this podcast love to journal. It is a staple of working with me. So what is a writing prompt you can give us?
What I love most about myself is.
Oh, I love that.
And by the way, don't write anything about your physicality. It's funny. I've asked over 1,000 people that question. In fact, I do this thing called Dan the Question Man, where I'll just go out on the street with my phone, with my camera, and just start talking with people and asking. I say, hey, can I ask you 3 questions? And one of the questions that I ask is, what do you love most about yourself? And what breaks my heart is that women, at least 50% of women, when I ask that question, will give me a physical response. I love my eyes, and I'm like, okay, great. What do you love about yourself, about who you are in the world? Because those things are going to change, right? Like, we're on a timeline with those things. But so I'm asking you who are listening, write down what you love and honor about who you are as a person in the world.
Yes.
Your unique qualities, the things that you do that other people look at and go, wow, that's really something. And you're like, wow, that's nothing, right? But to other people, it's everything. And I can tell you, when you focus on the things that you love about yourself, and for some reason in our culture, we're told not to be appreciative of ourselves, and some like for some reason it's going to make you look like an awful person or make other people feel bad. Screw that. You are a unique being in this world, and you deserve to be honored by you. Yes. And I can tell you, if you honor you, suddenly what you'll find is you're less concerned about people who shame or blame you or say nasty things about you, because you become bulletproof. Yeah. And that's how you become bulletproof, is you stop, or you don't limit the love that you have for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That is it's a great writing prompt. And that point of, we're almost taught to not acknowledge and accept who we are. I mean, even growing up, I can remember I love to sing, and my entire undergrad is in music. I spent decades of my life touring the world and singing, and love music. But the thing I hated the most about singing was when people would come up and compliment me, because I was always taught it was wrong to say I was good at singing. And in my head, I was like, but I am good at it. And
Yeah.
it's like, I didn't go out and buy singing.
Right. Yeah.
It was gifted to me.
Yeah.
And then I honed that craft for years and years and years and years and years. And I just felt like, why can't I say I am an excellent singer? I've worked at it, and the gift was given to me. I take no credit for the gift. God gave that to me. I used it.
Mm. It's so
So
funny, right?
yeah,
Because
what you said.
we all want to be complimented and appreciated. And yet, what happens typically when you compliment someone? They're like, oh, it's
Oh,
nothing.
it's
Like,
nothing.
right? No, like, hey, here's what you do. Look, I get a lot of compliments. It's very nice. When I come off stage and be like, wow, that was great. I say, fantastic. What touched you the most? Right?
Yes.
I want to get like, a great thing would have been like, oh, thank you. What song or what about my singing? What's something that I said in my song that touched your heart?
Yes.
Because then, like now, you're engaged with someone. Like
Yeah.
most people don't know what to do with a compliment. Put it back on the person, on the compliment giver, because what they're saying is, you open me up in a way, and I want to talk about that. And
Yeah.
that's what the compliment means.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Oh, we're just gonna have to have you back. There's so much more we could talk.
I'd love to. This has been
There's so
so
much.
delightful.
Oh my gosh, I agree. So before we let you go, we want to know your version of your pow pow shoes.
What is my superpower?
Yes.
What I'm doing right now. I
I see.
inspire people to have deeper conversations, to open up, to recognize the beautiful parts of themselves and the beautiful parts of other people that are in their lives. People have said to me on multiple occasions, boy, Dan, people who don't want to look at themselves don't want to talk to you. Right.
Mm,
And I know I get people to say the things that they don't expect to say. I can't tell you the number of times people have said to me on airplanes, trains, buses, lines at the grocery store, I can't believe I'm saying this to you. And I love that about me.
yes. I love that about you too.
Thank you.
Thank you for hanging out with us today. This has been a joy, and I look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you who are listening for taking the time to be an agent of change in your life and the world. I'd love and honor you for it. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.